At 40 years old, he had nothing. No money, no company, no home to call his own. The business he had spent a decade building had collapsed overnight. The partner he had trusted with his life had walked away, and the people who once called him a visionary had gone completely silent. There is a particular kind of pain that comes not from losing money, but from losing your identity, from waking up one morning and not recognizing the person staring back at you in the mirror. That was where he found himself, 40 years old, alone, starting from zero. But this is not a story about losing everything. This is a story about what one man chose to do after. Pause. He was not always a man without direction. In his 30s, he was someone the world noticed. He had built a company from a single idea written on a napkin in a small cafe. He hired people who believed in him. He made deals that others said were impossible. He stood in rooms where powerful men listened when he spoke, and he believed, truly believed, that this was just the beginning. Life rewarded him, and for a while everything felt permanent. That is the quiet danger of success. It makes you feel untouchable. It whispers to you that what you have built cannot be taken, that the future will always look like the present. And so, like most people who start to believe that lie, he stopped paying attention. Pause. The collapse did not arrive like a storm. It arrived like a slow leak. First, a decision he made too quickly that cost him more than money. Then a partner who had been quietly taking more than his share for years. Then a market that shifted without warning, and a business model that had no answer for what came next. One by one, the pillars fell. The company shut its doors on a Tuesday morning. The bank called by Thursday. By the end of that month, he had sold almost everything he owned just to stay afloat. He moved into a small apartment on the edge of a city that no longer felt like his. He had no team, no title, no plan. He told a close friend years later, "I did not cry about the money. I cried because I had spent so long becoming someone, and now I did not know who that someone was anymore." Pause. For 6 months, he lived quietly in that uncertainty. He did not post about his struggles on the internet. He did not look for sympathy. He simply sat with the wreckage of his life and did something most people are too afraid to do. He looked at it honestly. Every decision, every mistake, every moment where he had chosen comfort over courage, ego over wisdom, speed over depth. He did not look at these things to punish himself. He looked at them to understand himself. And somewhere in that painful private process, something shifted. He stopped asking the question that had been consuming him every morning when he woke up. The question of, how do I get back what I lost? And he started asking a different question entirely. Who do I need to become? Pause. That question changed everything. He began to read, not the books he had always been too busy to finish, not the summaries and shortcuts, the real books, the long ones, the ones written by people who had fallen further than him and risen higher than he had ever imagined. He began to have conversations with people he had previously considered beneath his attention. Small business owners, teachers, people who had lived quiet, disciplined, meaningful lives without ever needing the world to applaud them. He learned things that no boardroom had ever taught him. That character is built in the moments no one is watching. That real confidence is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. That the most dangerous thing a person can lose is not their money or their status, but their belief in their own ability to begin again. And slowly, almost without noticing, he began to rebuild. Pause. It started small, a single consulting project for a friend who needed help. Then a small team of 2 people who believed in what he was trying to do. Then a product. Then a service. Then a reputation built not on noise and announcement but on quiet, consistent delivery. He made mistakes in this new chapter too. Of course he did. But this time, the mistakes did not break him, because he had already been broken completely, and he knew now what it felt like to put yourself back together piece by piece. He was not building for applause this time. He was building because he had something real to offer, because the decade of failure had given him a depth of understanding that no success could have provided. Year by year, the work compounded. And by the time he turned 50, what he had built was not just a business. It was something that carried weight, a company that employed hundreds of people, a name that opened doors in his industry not because of how loudly he had announced himself, but because of how reliably he had shown up. The people who had once gone silent when he lost everything were now asking him for advice. Pause. In an interview he gave not long after, someone asked him what the real difference was. What separated the man who had collapsed at 40 from the man who had built an empire by 50? He thought for a long moment before he answered. Then he said, "I stopped being afraid of losing, because I had already lost everything and I had survived it. And once you know you can survive the worst thing you can imagine, nothing can really hold power over you anymore." He paused, and then he added something that has stayed with everyone who heard it. He said, "The fall was not my punishment. The fall was my education. And everything I built after it was only possible because I had been willing to go through it." Pause. Maybe you are going through something right now that feels like the end of your story. Maybe the thing you built has fallen apart. Maybe the person you trusted has let you down. Maybe you woke up this morning and looked around at your life and felt like none of it makes sense anymore. If that is you, then I want you to hear this. The chapter you are in right now is not the conclusion. It is the turning point. And the question is not whether you will survive it. The question is who you will decide to become because of it. The man in this story did not have extraordinary talent. He did not have a secret formula or a lucky break that others did not get. He had one thing. He chose to begin again. And so can you. Pause. If this story reached something inside you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories like this, stories about real people, real struggles, and the lessons hidden inside them, then subscribe to Kavro Tales. Because every single week, we bring you the kind of story that reminds you of what is possible. See you in the next one.